Ladies and gentlemen, it is finally here. I'm so excited to share what we've been working on. So today it's time for you to meet Scribble. Scribble is a device which blurs the lines between a traditional MIDI controller and cybernetics that give your pedals MIDI superpowers. At its heart is a beautiful, vibrant display which lets you put preset names, parameter information, whatever you would like on there so that you can at a glance see exactly what your rig is doing. It has advanced MIDI routing capabilities with multiple MIDI ports. It has USB, Bluetooth, as well as hardware TRS 3.5mm jacks. There's an input jack, which is type A, so you can control the Scribble from your external MIDI controller. And the output jack can be selected as either type A or type B, which means it's compatible with virtually any pedal that has standard MIDI. It's available in two colors, black and white, so you can perfectly match the aesthetics to your pedalboard. In the box, you will find your Scribble, as well as a separate acrylic overlay that you can apply, which protects your screen and gives it that perfect flare to sit on top of your rig. It also includes this power adapter here, which is special because the Scribble is so small. It's designed to be as thin as possible, so it can sit on top of your pedal, like so, and not interfere with the foot switches. Now, this will depend on the exact pedal, so make sure to check the height of this, but a standard DC jack is actually too big. That's how thin this thing is. It's tiny. So we include this adapter so that you can easily power it via a DC jack or via USB. It'll work with either. And that just sits off to the side nicely, and it's designed to sit perfectly on this format of pedal, but it works with much larger pedals as well. Take a look at the Nano Cortex, for example. It sits perfectly on there. And we also include a little adhesive strip on the back so that you can mount it to your pedal and not worry about it going anywhere. No need for Velcro. Now, the editor is designed to be extremely easy to use, no matter what your background in MIDI. We can go here and we're greeted with this main screen where we have global settings, preset settings, as well as some options for importing the configuration from the device to the editor or sending it to the device. And you can also export your config as a file for backup. So we can just click on the text box here to change the text. We're on preset 1, so we can make this some very cool text, like super cool. On preset 1, we can send this to our device, and it will send that configuration onto our device and update it for us. You can see here, we've now got our preset text. Then you can delete the secondary text if you want to just have that main preset heroed on there, like so. And there we've just got our main preset text ready to go. So in the global settings, we've got some device settings where you can rename your device. So that changes how it appears to your computer and gives it a way to differentiate between multiple devices, multiple Scribbles that you may have connected. You can change the UI mode from dark to light, as well as the display brightness and the main color and the text color. So we can change this here to, let's say, a nice kind of off blue. And then we might want to make that main text color there dark for better readability. Let's see what that looks like. And there we go. We can match it to whatever pedal it's sitting on. You might want to match your pedal's branding colors or have them color assigned to easily reflect the status of your rig. But I hear you say, what about when I change presets? Well, you can also change these parameters per preset. If we go to preset settings, you can see we can use the global main color, or we can override it and give that preset a custom color, like so. We can do the same thing with the text color to really customize every preset. Might have chosen some colors that need a little bit more contrast to make them more readable, but you can see that this is applying to preset 1. So on preset 1, we have those custom colors we entered. But on the rest of our presets, we have those global because we haven't overridden them per preset. So it's very flexible. So going back into the global settings, we have got the display brightness, which you can adjust if you're playing in a dark room. We've got MIDI settings. Now, this might seem a bit overwhelming, so we'll go through them step by step. As I mentioned, we can change the output jack type to be either type A or type B, so that you don't need to worry about using a custom cable to swap those pins over. We've got a global BPM, which when you set this to generate a master MIDI clock, will mean that you can just assign one BPM, one tempo, and when you change presets, that's not going to change. But of course, we can also set that per preset, so you can have customized tempos for every song or every set that you're playing. We can set the clock mode to external, whether it's going to accept MIDI clock from an external source and display the BPM readout on your screen. Preset, so as I mentioned, every preset then has its own custom BPM. We've got global, where the preset is global regardless of what preset you're on, and then we've got none if you don't want to use a MIDI clock display. And you can display that in beats per minute, milliseconds, or just a flashing indicator to simplify things. Then we've got some customized CC values here, which is control change values. And this is a way that you can decide how your Scribble can be controlled externally. So this is like the map of MIDI commands that control your Scribble. So by default, you'll see that the preset up, preset down, go to preset, global custom message, and preset custom messages are all defined for you. You don't have to change those. And what that means is if you send CC3 from an external MIDI source to your Scribble, it is going to go to whatever preset that the value is on. Or if you just want to scroll up and down, you can do that as well. So let's take a look at how we might do this. So I've got the Scribble connected via USB to my computer, but of course this would be exactly the same whether you're going with Bluetooth MIDI or the TRS MIDI. Let's go ahead and I'm going to use the Bluetooth MIDI dongle, and you can see here there's an indicator to show that your Scribble is connected to a Bluetooth MIDI source. When it's not connected, for example, if I disconnect my Bluetooth MIDI dongle, you'll see it goes out. And then when we plug that back in, it'll reconnect automatically. So let's communicate with this over Bluetooth. To our preset mapping, if I want to go to preset up, go to the next preset, I can just send this, and we can scroll through our presets like that. I can go to the previous preset by sending CC2, and it will wrap around automatically to the final preset, 128. And we can use CC3, and this value will tell it what preset to go to. So on 64, we go to that next preset. And remember that the MIDI CC values are indexed from 0 to 127, but to make things easier, it indicates the preset number from 1 to 128, which is why there's that one number difference. Now, we talked here about global custom messages. What are they? Well, they are message stacks that you can create that will be triggered from an external MIDI source. So along with being able to assign message stacks to the switches, you can put message stacks that can be triggered via these external CCs. And we'll get to that later, but that means that you can use one MIDI message from an external controller. Maybe you've got a really simple MIDI controller that can only send out one message per switch action. Well, you can have a whole stack of MIDI messages which get triggered from that to control your entire pedal board with one press. Pretty cool. So then we can assign the MIDI input channel. It can be Omni, or we can assign a specific MIDI channel. We've got preset MIDI PC outputs. When you're changing presets on your Scribble, whilst you can press the preset buttons to go up and down through your presets, you might want to automatically send a program change to your external equipment. So if you've got this connected up to a Genelos, to any MIDI compatible device, you don't want to have to manually go through and for every preset add a program change to automatically send. And that's where this setting comes in, the PC bank outputs. Really useful. So in the editor, under the global MIDI settings, we can see that for every MIDI interface, so USB, Bluetooth, and MIDI 1, which is the 3.5mm MIDI jacks, we can choose whether we want to send a PC bank output or have it off. And if it's not off, we can choose what channel. And this means every time we change presets, it will automatically send that program change on that channel for us. Super handy. So for USB, I'll set this to 5, so channel 5. And for Bluetooth, I might set this to channel 1, and we'll leave the MIDI 1 off for now. So we send that to our device. So again, I'll go to our MIDI monitor here so you can easily visualize what's going on. Now, when I've got the MIDI in source selected as USB, when I change presets, you can see we get this program change here. So C means it's a program change and the number after it is the channel. Now remember that the MIDI messages or the channels are 0 indexed. So if this was on channel 1, you would see C0. And so for channel 5, which is what we set over USB, it is showing 4. So that's working perfectly. And we'll change it to the Bluetooth source. And now we can see that those program changes are happening on channel 1, so that's C0. So depending on what you have connected to what ports, you can easily set your MIDI channels with those PC Bank outputs. It's great, saves you a ton of time, it's really easy to use. Now, MIDI Thru settings, we have our through routing. So you can see when MIDI messages come in on the TRS MIDI input, this 3.5mm jack here on the side, they can be routed to the TRS MIDI output, the USB or Bluetooth, and likewise for the USB and Bluetooth MIDI sources. So you get full control over how the messages are sent through. So here we've got our MIDI clock sent to global. So it's going to use that BPM for every preset. Now we can change this value here to be, let's say 96 beats per minute. We'll send that to our device. And because that's global, it's going to show regardless of what preset we're on, which can be really handy sometimes when you just want the BPM to be the same no matter what preset you're on, and maybe you're controlling that change externally. So that's our global MIDI settings. Now, switch settings. These are global, so you can control message stacks both globally and per preset. So here we can control what each button here is doing. Now by default, they will be assigned to preset up and preset down, but we can change that. On the left switch, maybe we want it to be preset up, or maybe we want to only change presets when we hold it. Or maybe we don't want any preset navigation when we press these switches, and we only want it to send MIDI message stacks, which we've got here. So we can create some MIDI messages here. So we could send control changes on channel 4, whatever we want this to be, let's say 1, say 10 on these MIDI outputs, we can save that. Now we can also add a device library entry, which is very cool. So you can just select your pedal. So let's say I've got this gen loss here by the friends over at Chase Bliss, and I want to control the Chase, or not Chaos Audio, the Chase Bliss audio. And I've got a gen loss, so I'm going to go to gen loss Mark II. And I want to, when I press this switch every time, let's say I might want to change the engage. So I'm kind of, playing around with the bypass when I change presets. Well, it'll automatically populate the controller number and the value. You don't even have to think about looking up the MIDI manual or the manual for this particular pedal or any pedal in our device library. Pretty neat. So we can save that. You also have messages that trigger on a hold, and you can do this for both switches. I'll put that back to preset down for a minute. We'll discard those changes. Now, like I said, you can change this per preset. So if you click on the switch icon here, you get these same message stacks, but this is per preset. So you get really, really powerful MIDI control from these nice buttons. And I do have to say, got a really nice, satisfying little tactile feel to them. They feel great. So going back to our global settings here, we've got these global messages, which is where we can create a message stack with MIDI messages that we want to be sent triggered from external MIDI commands. It's like this MIDI inception thing happening here. And again, we can add device library messages or other messages, just like we did with the message stacks. And so this is a global trigger message. So in our MIDI settings, when CC17 is received on whatever MIDI channel we're listening to, it will trigger this message stack to be sent. Very cool. And in our wireless settings, we can just decide whether we want Bluetooth off or on. Maybe you don't want Bluetooth on. Maybe it's interfering with other Bluetooth devices. You can turn that off. Now, this is an experimental feature at the moment that we're working on. By default, you want it set to server if you're connecting to your computer or like a WIDI host or something like that. And we are working on client as well, so it can act as like the central Bluetooth node, but that is still in development. So they're all of the global settings. Now, Just like with our Bridge OS, in the app settings, you can put names for the MIDI channels, which is really useful when you're setting up your pedal board and you want to give these names rather than just remembering that, oh, this pedal's on channel 1. Let's say I've got my Nano Cortex here and I've got my D1 delay. I can go through and give those names to keep better track of what's going on in the editor, which is pretty handy. So in the preset settings, we've got the preset name, which we talked about here, and you can edit this in the preset settings like sidebar here, or you can just edit it directly on the user interface there. And we can set our preset BPM, our tempo that we would like it to be. And we can also, we've got those color overrides as well. Our switch messages, which we touched on, and preset messages. So we've got, just like with our custom global messages where you can trigger those from an external MIDI command, we've got the same thing but per preset, so tons of message capacity here. And then we've got preset messages. These are quite neat. These are sent whenever you enter a preset. So when you're navigating presets, you don't just have to rely on that program change updating everything. You could send a bunch of other MIDI messages when you change presets. All right, so let's take a look at how we might set this up on a particular device. So I've got this Nano Cortex here. I'm going to go into my preset settings, and I'm just going to use the global color settings here. And we'll go back into our global settings, and we'll make this a nice, maybe like kind of a cool greeny color here. Might look good, and then we might keep that text as black. We'll put it onto the dark UI mode. And this might have a preset name, or maybe we're making a set list for an upcoming gig, and so we want this to be, we're playing some Springsteen. Okay, then we're playing some U2. You get the idea. We're building up this set list of songs, so it looks fairly interesting. We'll go and send that to our device, and we'll show you how you can connect this up. All right. So ignore the secondary text. You might want to make some notes for yourself. You could set that to some modulation value or just some extra information to display. So if I'm connecting this to the Nano Cortex, then I can connect it to the MIDI out here using a TRS adapter. And the Nano Cortex has a TRS 1/4 inch. So we can go into there, plug it into the MIDI port. Now we are actually working on some really nice custom cables that will be 3.5mm to 1/4 inch that are designed to be long enough that you can use them on a device like the Nano Cortex here, which has this kind of, the MIDI jack located at the back, but also the perfect length so that you can mount them on a Chase Bliss pedal. And we've got the MIDI input there, and it will simply wrap around and connect to your MIDI in, like so. So you've got your MIDI output. Then let's say you're connecting to an external MIDI controller that has a DIN5 output. You take a DIN5 cable with a 3.5mm adapter and plug it into your MIDI input. Now this is currently being powered by USB, but again, we can power this via DC with this nice low profile adapter here. And you can see that all of these cables can really neatly tuck down the side without interfering with any of the other ports. And that's key. One of the most powerful features of the Scribble is its MIDI clock handling. So it can accept external MIDI clock and display it on the screen so you get a BPM readout, or you can display that in milliseconds, or just have a flashing pulse indicator if you'd like. And it can also be the master clock generator, so it can generate the reference MIDI clock and send that out to all of your gear. We'll take a look at both situations and how you might use them. So I've got my Scribble plugged in here. Let's go over to the editor. All right, so going into our global settings, MIDI settings, we can see the clock mode here. So we can set this to external, which will let it receive external MIDI clock. We'll save that, send it to the device. All right, now I'm going to use a MIDI monitor so that you get a better visualization of what's happening rather than just looking at blinking LEDs. So we can use this to generate a master MIDI clock. I've selected the Scribble as the output, and here we can generate this. We'll set it to 90 beats per minute and send it. And you can see that our Scribble has locked onto that and is displaying the tempo in BPM. Another really useful feature is the Scribble's ability to respond to start and stop commands. So this might not be applicable to you in a guitar pedal, but it's really useful for the sequencer, arpeggiator, keyboard folk, as well as some pedals which use these start and stop commands for various timing related things. So the MIDI clock will still be running, but there's a MIDI message for start and a MIDI message for stop, which can tell, say, an arpeggiator to start playing the sequence or to stop playing the sequence, still with that MIDI clock being sent so it is constantly locked into that tempo. You'll see on the screen that the BPM text is orange, and this indicates that the Scribble has not received a start event, so it is in the stop mode, and it's still receiving that MIDI clock, passing it through, nothing else has changed, but we get that display, which is lacking on most controllers. So if we go here, I can send a start message, and you'll see that it's now updated to green, indicating it is in a start. It's received that start message, and if we go back to send stop, it goes back to orange. So you get this really useful, easy to read indication of what, whether the MIDI clock has been started or stopped, even though the clock itself is still running. So you see, we can really easily sync to an external MIDI clock, but what about generating the master MIDI clock? Well, we go into our MIDI settings, we can go to global, and we can set a global tempo of, let's say, 96 beats per minute. We'll send this to the device, and you can see our device is updated showing that MIDI clock. But what good is it if we can't actually send it to things? So we'll go back to our MIDI monitor here so you can see what's going on. So you can see that the Scribble has a global BPM set to 96 beats per minute. And if we look here in this MIDI monitor, it's receiving 96 beats per minute. And that's just the stream of the F8, which is the MIDI clock command. So now what if we want this to be for every preset? Well, we can go into global settings, change this to preset mode. And now every preset will have its own BPM, its own tempo. And we can also display this in milliseconds if we like, instead of beats per minute, which might help if you're syncing up to some delay-based devices. And now you can see that we have our tempo reader, and this says 500 milliseconds, which is the preset tempo. So we go into our preset settings and we can see that for preset 1, the BPM is set to 120 beats per minute just as a default tempo. And that works out as 500 milliseconds. So 120 beats per minute means that it is sending a clock signal, that quarter note, twice every second, which if you convert that to the duration is 500 milliseconds. And we can go to another preset here, let's say preset 2. We can adjust the tempo to make that 130. And now preset 1 still has our 120 BPM or 500 milliseconds, but preset 2 has a 130 BPM, which works out to 462 milliseconds. So you get really versatile display over the MIDI clock, depending on how you want to do it. Every preset can have its own tempo, or you can do that globally. So that is a brief rundown on Scribble. We think it's amazing and the response from the community has been overwhelming. This is going to be going on sale in a couple of days, so when you're watching this, it's probably available for pre-order, and if not, head to the link to sign up to get notified as soon as it drops. Stock from the first batch will be limited, and we'll be opening up back orders for the second batch of stock. So if you have any questions about this, leave a comment down below, head to the link to find out more for yourself, and you can get started with the editor right now. It's live, so you can start playing around with all of the features that we've discussed. We'll be iterating really rapidly on new firmware features as feedback from the community rolls in, and putting out more content about these when it's available. So thank you so much for watching. Pick your Scribble up at the link below. Cheers.